Welcome to Life After, a podcast for women to take you from feeling like you're just surviving to thriving, to creating a life you really love. Expect to discover tips and tricks to get there. Each episode will have actionable steps to empower you to make changes. I started this podcast because I've been through it all, from getting out of a marriage with a narcissist to completely rebuilding my life. And now I'm on a mission to help you too. You can change your life. It's absolutely possible. Be careful what you tell yourself, and do not belittle yourself, even in jest. Negative, deprecating self-talk can do significant harm to your self-image. Cheryl Ilov. The stories you tell yourself and words you repeat to yourself become your reality. Unknown. You are your best thing. Toni Morrison. How you treat yourself is how you're inviting the world to treat you. Jane Travis. Remember, you have been criticizing yourself for years, and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens. Louise L. Hay. In this episode, we are going to talk about what you tell your brain believes. This is one of my favorite life skills modules, and I'm going to be releasing modules again in June. So if you're interested in joining, please message me. What you tell your brain is incredibly important. The messages that you are telling yourself internally, as well as the messages that you allow to come into your brain, what you think, what you do, how you believe, really matter. The messages that we listen to, that we allow, are going to impact all the areas of our lives. It's going to affect our ability to focus and accomplish the tasks we have to reach our goals and dreams. It's definitely going to focus our mental health and how we see and feel about ourselves. It's going to play a role in the actions that we take each day, whether we take actions and what actions those are. Are we doing good things for ourselves, or are we skirting those things that we know are good for us? Sleep, exercise, movement, nutrition. I know I often keep the messages behind this concept, what you tell your brain it believes, kind of light. However, as you can see in reality, it's really super impactful in our everyday lives. I was reminded of the importance of how much external messages can impact you after I left a job about 6 months ago. We often don't realize how much something is really hitting us while we're in the middle of it. And that was definitely the case here. I didn't realize just how much I had allowed my old boss to get into my head and under my skin. After more than a year of my work situation deteriorating, I did something. I still have no idea, really not sure exactly what it was, that just changed everything. And it became clear that she wanted me out. And let's just say that she went away. The way she went about it wasn't particularly kind. In the process of all of that happening, her negative and untrue external messages to me got in my head, and I really started to internalize them. This can take you down pretty quickly, even when you're fairly well resourced and resilient. Are you finding yourself struggling in a relationship and wondering if you're dealing with a narcissist? You're not alone, and I've got a resource that can help. Get my 5 questions to confirm you're not the problem. This helps you identify the emotions associated with being in a controlling relationship. Just head over to locatecoaching.com/5 questions. That's locatecoaching.com/5 questions. And take the first step toward clarity and confidence in your relationships. This is why we need to stay vigilant about what those messages are that we let in. Because if we allow someone to convince us or even attempt to tell us about ourselves in ways that aren't true, that we are who we know we're not, it can sink in pretty quickly and have a big impact. So here are some tips. Stay resourced. At this time, in this example with my job, we were behind. And so I was working a lot. And I wasn't eating as well as I should have. I wasn't sleeping. So I'm going to go back to the eating well. Nutrition is important. And particularly, I have found as you get older, the impacts of, well, let's face it, the impacts of everything you do as you get older seem to, not that the impacts are less as you get younger, you just seem to be able to manage them better when you're younger. You can't hide behind these things, these tips I'm going to give you the older you get. So, and, as we talk about in the routine episode and in a lot of our episodes, some of these things just may not be, the things that you want to do, right? When you're stressed out, you want to eat chocolate, right? But maybe that's not the best way to resource yourself. So maybe have a little bit of dark chocolate. That's an okay way to resource yourself. But make sure you're getting the right meals at the right time and with the right nutrition. Sleep. I cannot begin to stress how important sleep is. All of the studies they've been doing about how critical sleep is and how it impacts so many areas of your life. And if you're a poor sleeper, you understand exactly what this means. So in order to improve your sleep, a couple of the tips that you'll hear me say, as well as pretty much anyone else out there that talks about sleep, is get a routine in your evening that allows your body and your brain to know that it's time to settle in and go to sleep. Get off that phone. It's not just that the content that you're taking in, but also the light on the phone to help you settle into an evening routine. And maybe you won't see this so much out there, but one of the things that I've always sworn by for years and years and years is I always read right before bed, and that always helps me kind of settle in. If you have any great ideas for what makes your sleep routine so fantastic, let me know so I can include them whenever I do a podcast episode that includes sleep as a tip. Staying resourced also always includes moving. Whether that's, a normal, what we would consider quote unquote normal exercise routine, whether you go walking or running or you go to the gym, whatever that looks like, that's great. But maybe it's just moving, walking the dog, taking a quick walk around the block, doing yard work or housework. Just move. The more you move, the better. And if that movement happens to take you out in nature, you get bonus points. Connecting with nature, there's something so beautiful and timeless and classic about connecting with nature. We have a tendency to move away from that in our modern day and age, and just getting outside. I think one of the things, as I think about it, getting out in nature really gets us present, gets us away from our phones a little bit, and allows us to stay resourced or get back to being resourced. Nature is such a beautiful way for us to stay connected to ourselves. Breathe, 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 breathe. Take some deep breaths. Often our breath can help us get reconnected to our body and to the earth and to all the ways that we need. It can help reduce our anxiety and our stress. So that's another way you can stay resourced. And breathing, taking some deep breaths can help you get resourced really quickly as well. And then, of course, music. I didn't add that to my list here of notes, but you all know that we talk so much about the power of music, and that's a way that we can shift our mindset into whatever mindset we want to be in, and of course, always goes on the ways to get and stay resourced. So the next thing that we can do under this topic of what we tell our brain believes, is to really be grounded in and know your values and beliefs. So what does this mean to you? What are your values and beliefs? What do you know at your absolute core to be what you believe in? What's true for you? Who are you as a person? What are your values? What are your most enduring values? The things, the 3 to 5 to 7, maybe not more than 10 traits or values about who you are as a person, right? And if you feel like you aren't familiar enough with your values and beliefs, then spend some time getting to know yourself. What do you like? Who are you? What do you stand for? Because the more that we know about ourselves, it inoculates us a little bit from the impacts of those external messages that someone or people might try to convince us of. So it's preventative medicine, as it were, to keep others from trying to convince us we are someone that we're not. It also helps us stay focused. It helps us build our resilience when we know who we are, when we know what we want, when we know that, the base of our belief structures. It allows us to kind of keep our own personal North Stars for where we're going and what we're doing and why we're doing it. So if you feel like maybe as we've talked in this part of this episode that you think, I'm not really sure. What are my beliefs and values? Take a little time to think about that. And know that our values and beliefs can change over time. They don't have to stay the same. As we develop, as we grow, as we learn, as we mature in life, our values and beliefs can change, and that's okay. So spend some time here. Now, none of us is perfect, of course. And I would say that's a wonderful thing. Knowing your strengths and those things that you might want to work on is really valuable. I know that because of my past, I'm really responsible. I'm a really responsible person. You can rely on me to be responsible. So when someone questions that, I can recognize that it's not me in that situation. It's an issue, as my kids would say. It's not an ish me, it's an issue. On the other hand, when I'm really stressed and I'm not well resourced, I'm not using the resources that I know I have available to me, I tend to get angry more easily. And that's on me. So when that happens, I have to take responsibility. I have to take a step back, breathe, and apologize when needed. And most importantly, then I need to do the work to get back to my own personal status quo. What are some traits, good or bad, they don't necessarily have to be bad, that you get to own? When we own them, we get to choose. And the thing about that is it's not for someone else to tell us about ourselves. We know these things and decide for ourselves. So even if I do have a tendency to get upset or angry, I can choose what to do with it, how to respond, or, as I've learned, not respond. And the external messages someone gives me are still my choice to accept or not. We don't have to take on as our own someone's criticism. And maybe getting feedback in that moment is okay. You decide. Whether we choose feedback or not, we also have the choice to decide what we're telling ourselves. Even if I respond when I'm angry and I don't like that I did that, I still don't have to beat myself up over it. I can choose to treat myself kindly, to change the pattern. I can hold myself accountable and take responsibility and apologize. All the steps. And you can learn to pattern interrupt the negative messages that you're giving to your own brain. Remember, what you tell your brain is what it believes, both from the external messages that you're getting and the internal messages you're giving yourself. We're all human. Mistakes are a foregone conclusion in this life. Failing forward is actually a good thing. It allows us to learn. And often we spend a lot of time in our lives in learning curve. When we look around and we pay attention, we realize we spend a lot of time in learning curve. Shifting your mindset to look at it that way really seems to me to be a much better option than telling yourself you're stupid, AKA, also known as silly. We much prefer to use the word silly over stupid. Or telling yourself other bad things, that you're bad or ugly or not good, or because here's the thing. When you tell yourself any of those negative words that have negative implications, it goes back to that quote at the beginning. You've already, many of us, spent so much mental energy in that space of criticizing ourselves. Wouldn't life be so much easier and better? Wouldn't a life without the internal criticism be lived with so much more ease? I'm telling you with absolute positivity and guarantee that it is, that it would be. So consider that pattern interrupt. Consider interrupting the negative messages you're giving yourself. In these situations, looking at the messages that we're getting externally, as well as the messages we're giving ourselves internally, goes a long way towards helping us figure out what's happening in our lives. Don't ever underestimate the impact of the chatter that's going on in our brains. And also the way that the little gremlins show up that way. It can be so easy to doom scroll, particularly now. And so it's important to talk about this for two reasons. Because the messages that we get when we doom scroll are going to seriously affect us. Don't do it. Don't doom scroll. The second is the more we spiral, the harder it is for us to dig our way out of those negative messages. And likely, if the messages that we're telling our brain are more negative, and it's a combination from doom scrolling and from messages that we're getting, other messages we're getting externally, and any messages we're giving ourselves internally, that spiral is going to go faster and get deeper before we know it. And this is really an area where we have control, the doom scrolling, and should take it. There's so much bad news out there right now. And so we should always be curating the content that we consume. What social media are we engaged in? And for those of us that are parents, what social media are our kids seeing? My kids are older now, but I know I could have done a much better job of this when they were younger. What news are we watching? And oh, by the way, stop watching most of the news. You don't have to watch news all day, every day to be well informed. Who are the 5 people you are spending most of your time with? What are you reading? Are you reading? Audiobooks count. I know you're listening to great podcasts. The thing is, we have more control than we think we do about the external messages that we're taking in when it comes to media and social media and entertainment. So take your control back and choose and curate what it is that you are taking in so that the messages that your brain are getting are at least in this way, are as positively focused as possible to minimize that kind of chatter. When it comes to spiraling, we sometimes think that we should recover so much more quickly once we've spiraled than we do. And someone once explained to me, and was trying to think about who it was, and I think maybe it was a teacher during my coaching certification program. I couldn't quite capture it when I was thinking about it. In any case, they gave us this visual about the steps it takes. I know that's kind of weird to think about steps when you think about a spiral, to think about steps. But if you envision a spiral and you think about moving your way down the spiral, as you move your way back up the spiral, that upward movement you make as you're coming out of the spiraling, if you think about spiraling out of control and you think you've gone down, 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 as you think about the reverse of that, people often think when they spiraled out of control, they should just snap right out of it. But if you think about if you envision an actual spiral, you have to move back up the spiral to get back to balance. And so for as far down the spiral you went, you have to turn around and work your way back up to get back to the top. Now, I don't know that necessarily stands to be true exactly, that you have to re step back through the entire spiral when you've spiraled down. But the visual itself always helps me to think about one process may impact the other, or this notion that we can very quickly negatively go down, 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 or the deeper that we go down, the time it takes that we can deeply get into a negative headspace. And as with lots of things in life, we just think we can snap our fingers and come right out of it. And that just simply may not be the case. So what I'm advocating for here is this idea that when it comes specifically to the messages that we're giving our brain, and even more specifically through news and social media and entertainment, that we curate that information so carefully that we don't have to go through the spiraling down and coming back out of it process. We have the ability to choose and control what we're allowing in. And if we do that with intent, then we don't have to go through the process of the ebb and flow or up and down or valleys and mountains and valleys of trying to keep ourselves balanced and level. We are not at the mercy of what we're being given. We can choose what we want to receive. So maybe keep that in mind. One tip I have is to recognize that often the internal messages that we're telling ourselves are not ours. We've talked about this in a couple of different episodes. There are messages that are originated from someone else, and we've just heard it so many times, or frankly, it was so powerful the one time we heard it, I've told my math story several times, that we immediately integrated it into our own personal story. It became a part of us. And when that happens, and we spend some time looking at those stories, we can choose whether we want to keep them or not. When we go through that process, we can let them go. We can choose to let them go. And that's one of those places where we can change our beliefs, and we can do so very quickly. Or, as my good friend Molly Mandelberg says, we can just not believe them anymore. As she says, I don't choose that for me anymore. I've been living as if that's true, and that hasn't worked for me. So how about I try living without that being true? Her quote comes from the interview I did with her this season in episode 4. If you'd like to check out any more of her brilliant wisdom in that episode, I'll also put her contact information in the show notes. She's got lots of amazing content out there if you'd like to check her out. Finally, let's talk about affirmations. I'm borrowing this from the original episode I did on what you tell your brain believes in season 1. Use affirmations. Some people think that affirmations are kind of silly and woo-woo-y, and that's okay. I can tell you that affirmations and sometimes if you really need to get unstuck, making a favorite affirmation your personal mantra really redirects your brain in a very positive way. I'll put these. I'll list these. You can't put a handout. I realize I put a note in here to say that I put a handout, but you can't put a handout in the show notes. It's part of my learning curve from season 1. But here are some of my favorite or affirmations, or that I've used a lot in working with clients over the years. I trust that it will be resolved. If not this, then something better. I am successful in everything I do. I protect my time and space through boundaries. I choose courage over fear. I love, and then fill in the blanks. I want. My purpose is. My vision is. Done is way better than perfect. There is no limit to what I can learn. Challenge is a springboard. My attitude and effort create my future. I will never give up. This podcast is a valuable resource for anyone seeking to make meaningful changes in their life. I'm here to support you on your unique journey, offering guidance and encouragement every step of the way. There will be new episodes on the second and fourth Wednesday every month. Please follow on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss any episodes. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode on what you tell your brain believes. Remember, both the internal and external messages we give our brain matter, and you have a choice for what those messages are. Decide what your choice is going to be. As we wrap up, here's the thing. I've made every mistake. I've literally been there and done that. It's one step at a time, and you'll get there. There's hope. You've got this. If you're struggling in a relationship and wondering if it might be controlling, you're not alone. Download my free PDF at locatecoaching.com/free gift to help you find clarity and confidence. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon.